Wheeling Plan Commission meeting for Thursday, January 11, 2018 is called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Secretary, please take a roll.
Commissioner Panova.
Here.
Commissioner Creech.
Present.
Commissioner Dorban.
I'm here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Kalis.
Here.
Commissioner Powers is here. Chairman Rafato.
Here. Brooke, any changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Citizen concerns and comments, Mr. Secretary.
Citizens' concerns and comments at other village public bodies meetings. Members of the general public may address the Plan Commission with concerns or comments regarding issues relevant to the Plan Commission's agenda or topics that the Plan Commission has the authority pursuant to the village code to address. The chairperson or his or her designee shall strictly restrain comments to matters that are relevant to the Plan Commission's business and shall not permit repetitious comments or arguments. Members of the general public who wish to address the Plan Commission must sign a request to speak prior to the commencement of the public hearing. A person submitting a petition, concern, or other comment shall be allotted 5 minutes to present their points. Mr. Stylen.
Mr. Stylen, as a reminder, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Terry Stylen, 473 Briarwood Drive, Wheeling, Illinois. While driving around town, I happen to become aware and more aware as a former village president stated repeatedly, there seems to be a lot of dreck in the area. I've noticed that there's a lot of signs that have paint peeling off them in states of disrepair, parking lot lights that, painted parking lot lights that have paint peeling off of them, rust all over. Clearly, I would think a property maintenance type issue. Now, I'm familiar with a lot of the ordinances in town, and I think you guys are too, but I've never really stumbled across the property maintenance ordinances. And I thought maybe, you know, you guys have an occasional week when you don't have too much to do. Maybe it might be wise to have the Plan Commission take a look at the property maintenance ordinances and see if there might be some tweaking that needs to be done. After all, you know, the value of my property is directly related to the value of the properties that are around me, and if the properties are drecky, as hi Judy used to say, you know, that's going to affect the value of my property. So just a thought, maybe you can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stylen.
Ms. Wilson.
Ms. Wilson, as a reminder, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. I wanted to address the behavior of Commissioner Steve Powers at a meeting recently where I spoke publicly. We do different types of work, Mr. Powers, and I do it from this side and you do it from that side. As I spoke at the podium at the village board meeting, you were sitting back there next to Mr. Stylen, and you heckled me. You said to sit down. Yes, you did. And Village President Horker had to use his hand and ask you to please refrain. I think it was very unseemly behavior for you as a commissioner. What I do, I think, is important. I think a lot of the people appreciate it. And while you may have your thoughts and feelings on my public advocacy, I think it's very inappropriate as an appointed official of the Village of Wheeling to speak out of turn while you're in the audience at a public board meeting. And I would just ask that in the future you would respect my time at the mic at the board meetings. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Powers.
That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Consent items, docket number SCBA 18-1. Excuse me. Stay Fit 24, 740 West Hintz Road, appearance approval of a wall sign. I'm going to bring it up there. There you go. Thank you. And it's just wall sign, no, nothing on the monument, right?
There is a monument sign existing, and so they will be placing their tenant panel in there.
Will that
That does not require Plan Commission review
Okay.
because the Plan Commission has already reviewed the monument sign and allows for swapping out of tenant signage.
Great, thank you very much. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Dorban, second by Commissioner Blanova. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Dorban?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Kalis?
Yes.
Commissioner Powers votes yes, and Chairman Rafato.
Yes. Items for review, docket number PC 18-1, Meadowbrook Park, 425 Nancy Lane, minor site plan and appearance approval of park modifications. Brooke, anything?
I have nothing at this time. I would just invite the applicant to come forward.
Good evening. I'm Larry Raffel, Superintendent of Planning at the Wheeling Park District. Also here in the audience is Sue Stein, our Board of Commissioners President, and Jan Bukes, our Executive Director. And we're here before you tonight to make some improvements to Meadowbrook Park. And as you've seen in the packet, right now, the existing playground is a tot lot. It's basically one single structure, some tot swings. And we have always intended to make this neighborhood park a playground for all ages. So right now we have a tot structure, bucket swings, benches, trash recycling receptacles, bike rack, and a small seat wall. And you can see we're hemmed in by a lot of utility easements. The outlined piece, and the dark outline, is basically, that's what the park district owns. It's a half acre. The remainder the village owns, and we lease it from the village, and that's 2.3 acres. And we're proposing literally to do all of our improvements within that property we own and within the easements. So as you can see by the design concept, we've held 2 meetings with the neighborhood, listening session, and then presentation of a design concept along with playground equipment options. And this is what we've done with every playground improvement we do, and every time we come before you, this is the process we go through. And the design basically expands the existing playground area to accommodate a 5 to 12-year-old play structure, tire swing, belt swings for the older kids, and then an individual play piece, which is a spinning piece. And you can see by the yellow hatched area, that's the expansion part of it. The piece in the center is the existing. We're not proposing any additional landscaping, any additional site improvements outside of the perimeter of the playground expansion, other than a small trellis structure, which is an open-air structure, approximately 100 square feet. We're not proposing any lighting, any water fountains, really any utilities on this site. We just really want to meet the needs of the neighborhood in providing a neighborhood park. So we also provided you with a enlargement of the playground area. You can see there, and how the structure, the 5 to 12 structure fits in there, as well as the tire swing, the belt swings, the location of the trellis structure as well. And then we're also providing additional benches. And what came out of our neighborhood meetings is what they'd like to see is benches more around the playground area as opposed to a central location. So we've done that by placing them around the play structures within the play surface, but out of the safety zone. You can kind of see the outlines there around the playground equipment as a safety zone. So this really makes it more convenient for the caregivers to be able to kind of sit and watch and enjoy where the kids are actually playing as opposed to congregating in one area. We'll still have the benches where we have them up in the front there, but we'll have some additional benches. You can see that. And then the trellis structure, we also have an image of that too. That's a catalog piece, and basically it's open air. It's posts with a mesh surface. This site has a lot of really nice mature trees, and it has really nice open feeling, so we don't want to do anything that might confine that feeling or add mass to that feeling. So we're really just proposing to do this expansion to make this a playground for children of all ages. And what you see is what's come out of the neighborhood meeting. This is the play structure that the neighborhood residents preferred when we presented them with, I believe, 6 different options. This is the one that they preferred. It's equipment we've used before in the past. And we've also provided just images of belt swings and a tire swing, and then the stand and spin, which is the individual play piece. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay. Just writing a note. Commissioner Dorband.
Thank you. I really like the design. I also like the small climbing wall. That's really neat. And I especially like the trellis shelter. I think that's really a nice addition. Thank you. That's all I have.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. It's always good to see us able to improve the parks. I have no questions on this. Thanks.
Commissioner Creech.
I'd like to say thank you. Great job, you guys, ladies, gentlemen. Great addition to our village and to our park districts.
Thank you.
Commissioner Blanova.
Thank you. I can't wait. I can't wait. We're using this park, I just read there. So we're using this park, and I can't wait to see that change. Thank you.
Just one other thing I'll note is that we have one more meeting with the neighborhood, which will be the end of this month.
We'll be there.
So, good.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kalis.
Thank you. Looks great. Love parks. Have a kid. Very, very nice. No questions.
And Commissioner Powers.
I have nothing, as all your other projects is great. Thank you.
Looks great. It really does. The ground, is it going to, where the area is it going to be covered with I don't know what that material is, like by the library, that park.
Yeah.
What is that surface called?
Well, it's called a Smarty surface as the manufacturer. You can call it artificial turf.
Okay.
And what we're going to be doing at this playground is basically using the same thing that's out there, just matching that.
Okay.
So it'll be completely artificial turf surfacing.
Because it's a great surface
Yeah.
for little kids. Are you going to have that? You're not going to have that. What is it? It's at your Park Horizon. It's on a
Zip line?
the zip line.
No.
My grandkids love that thing.
Yeah. This is a tight
Yeah, that's what I
space.
thought. That's what I thought. So it was just, and is it the same manufacturer, is that you have at, the equipment that you have, is it the same manufacturer that you have at Horizon?
No, this is a different manufacturer.
Different one.
This is actually, Little Tykes is the brand.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's the same manufacturer that we have at Northside, actually.
Oh, okay, I haven't seen that, but that equipment is really in good shape, and
Yeah.
it gets a lot of wear. And just one last question, you talked about, you have the neighborhood meetings. Are they attended well? It seems like you get a lot of input into them, which is good, and I appreciate that. And I hope they're well attended, because it's the neighborhood's, it's a neighborhood's park, and it's a great thing that you guys do, so, yeah.
It depends on the
Yeah,
weather or
right.
we send out, to this particular neighborhood, we'll send out over 300 postcards to the neighbors. And we ask them to come, and hopefully we get
Good.
a lot. We like a lot of input.
Yeah, and just one last thing, you had that picture, how it looks now. I really didn't like the snow there, so. So, okay, do I hear a motion on PC 18-1?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Johnson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Dorban, Mr. Secretary.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Dorband?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis?
Yes.
Commissioner Powers votes yes, and Chairman Rafato.
Yes. We'll have something for you to sign.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, hold on 1 second. We probably just have to sign one. That's the one we need, and keep the other one. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Docket number 2017-17 continues without discussion on 12/7/2017. Starbucks, Lot 2, Building A of the Wheeling Town Center subdivision. Address to be determined. Special use site plan approval for a drive-through restaurant. Mr. Secretary.
2017-17, WTC LLC contract owner is seeking special use site plan approval as required under Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-05 mixed use districts, Chapter 19-10 use regulations, Chapter 19-12 site plan approval requirements and associated sections in order to establish a drive-through restaurant in Lot 2 of the Wheeling Town Center subdivision. Address to be determined. Standards for a special use. A zoning special use is defined in Title 19 of the Village of Wheeling zoning is a use of a parcel of land that requires review and consideration before approval due to circumstances or effects on the surrounding properties that may adversely affect them. In order to be considered for a special use, the petitioner is required to demonstrate through the testimony to the Plan Commission at the public hearing why the request meets the conditions of the village code, including but not limited to how the proposed use will not damage the enjoyment or use of the surrounding properties. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that the request for a special use meets the standards established in Title 19. The Commission chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into the record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based upon the testimony and supporting materials submitted, the Plan Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report those findings to the village board. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, anything?
The only thing I have at this time is that these staff reports and submittals of the petitioner are part of the public record.
Great, thank you. Brad, good evening. Will you be the only person speaking on this?
I will not.
Okay, so who will be speaking on this?
Steve Corcoran from Erickson Engineering. He's our traffic consultant. And then Andrew Johnson and Tom Arsofsky.
So whoever's going to speak, if you could just stand up, I will swear everybody in at the same time. Please raise your hand. Do you swear the testimony you give tonight to be the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And as you come up and speak, if you could give your name and business address, speak into the microphone, as our recording secretary is not here tonight. So, Mr. Friedman, the floor is yours.
Well, it's good to see everybody again. We're going to take this one step at a time, so we're dealing with Starbucks right now. When we went through the final PUD process with you guys, our original plan had anticipated that we would have a coffee user with a drive-through for this outlot building. We've been working with Starbucks for quite some time now. They did make some modifications to their floor plan, to their footprint, and we've been working with our architects, the architects from Starbucks, in order to accommodate their requests. And we've put together a plan here and some building elevations that we think are going to fit right in with the town center. I know there's going to be a lot of questions, and so I am happy to turn it over to the plan commissioners, let you go through some of those Q&A items and have our team address anything that needs to be discussed.
Mr. Friedman, why don't we start with having you present, and then we have the stacking up here. We could probably start with that. I was thinking probably more of the appearance, but why don't you present the stacking plans for this, and then I'm sure we'll have questions, but I'd like to get everything together, then we'll have questions. And it is a public hearing, so we do have to ask for comments. So if we get everything done, then we can ask questions after that.
So do you just want to talk about the stacking right now?
Sure, it's up here, so let's bring it up.
That's fine.
Yep.
So a lot of this information really is just provided by Starbucks. And so we take their plans that are provided, and then we incorporate them into our site plan. And so with regards to the stacking, or any traffic issues, anything that is provided by Starbucks and is sufficient with them and is sufficient with our traffic engineer, we have accepted that, and we don't see any problems with the stacking as it is designed.
So if Mr. Corcoran can come up here, because as you well know, the original stacking was for 10 cars is what we anticipated.
Yes.
And you're coming to us with 8-car stacking.
Correct.
So I'm sure the board would like to understand the reasoning behind that, the statistics used for the stacking, and then I'm sure we'll have questions after that too.
And so before I turn it over to Steve, I just want to let you guys know that based on conversations that we've had with Starbucks, they are very happy with an 8-car stacking. The comments that have been made is that this is an operational issue, and once they open up a store and they see how the traffic patterns and the stacking continues, and if it gets to be anything greater than 8 cars, then they make modifications from an operational standpoint to increase the number of employees who are working the window, so the stacking doesn't go beyond 8 cars. It's really an operational issue.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Good evening again. Steve Corcoran with Erickson Engineering, 145 Commerce Drive, Grace Lake, Illinois. And again, traffic and parking, I did an analysis for this. And first of all, the village zoning code requires 6 spaces per drive-through window for fast food restaurants. So we exceed your requirement, 6 versus the 8 provided. We feel from the survey data that we presented in our report that 8 is going to be adequate for this store in this location. We did provide some data that shows some stores, Starbucks or other locations were providing, or sometimes saw queues as much as 9 or 10 vehicles. Those are generally more high visibility, high traffic locations, so we don't think that is applicable to this location, so the 8 should be adequate. And as Brad mentioned, I've worked on a number of Starbucks, and one of the things that they use to control queuing is how they man their drive-through windows, whether they have 1 employee, 1.5, or 2 assigned, so they can make adjustments for that. And we also addressed in our memo, okay, what happens if it's 9 cars? I mean, as you can see kind of in this diagram, that's 8. If a 9th car pulls up, its tail is going to be hanging out in the drive aisle in front of the store and might block the the westbound direction, but that should be momentarily. And then if a 10th car, that would be in the drive lane. That's not going to interfere with the parking in that area because we have a separate parking lot, so it's not going to be access to parking. Thank you. Yeah, it's a little hard to see, but you can see the parking separated from the road in front of the Starbucks and the other retail buildings, so that's not even if we had a 10th vehicle there, it's not going to block access to parking. And we also felt that if it does become a problem, we have do not block intersection signage and striping if we had to implement that in addition to control, the number of people at the drive-through.
And and I'm sure later on there will be some comments. Your memorandum that you sent to Mr. Friedman is the data that's presented there is given to you by Starbucks. Did you do any of this analysis?
I did the analysis. The data collection was actually done for Starbucks by another consultant.
Okay, so it's an independent.
Yes, it was done by Gwalt Hamilton, which the village has used from time to time to review traffic studies. And but that was data actually for Starbucks by my house that they did, and so I went onto my village's website and downloaded the study because it had some good data in there.
Thank you. We'll probably hold questions until later. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Friedman, how about if we go through the architecture of the, because you have all of these fine materials here. We don't want to, they brought them in, so let's discuss it.
So what we've done is we've taken the cement brick materials that we are using on the residential building, and we have selected a couple of options to use for the Starbucks location. So the bottom would be that gray cement brick.
Could have somebody lift it, and if you can use that microphone at the same time.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
So this material actually is used throughout our residential building, and so is this brandy wine cement brick. So these are the two materials that are predominant, along with the storefront glass windows and canopies for the Starbucks elevation. Most importantly, we've presented this to Starbucks, and they have signed off on it, and they have approved it. Ownership, architecture, all the team members are very much in favor of the elevation and the materials that we've selected.
So that the one on the left is the bottom. If we're looking at this picture here on the screen, that is the bottom.
Yeah, and it's also, as you can see, for this elevation, the back of the drive-through being used in the middle section as well.
Okay. And then, what other materials do you have there?
Some of those are for CityWorks.
Oh.
So,
wow. They only get
actually,
two?
a lot of those are for CityWorks.
They only get two?
So,
Okay, so one of the other, wow. So the, one of the other discussions was around the trash enclosure. And that's,
yeah, I think we're using this material as well for the trash enclosure. Yeah,
So-
it might be a darker gray.
so that's the exact same material that you use on the apartments?
This is, yes. And so is this, and then so is the dark gray. The apartment building is, you might remember, has a number of different materials and colors throughout.
And I'm doing this for clarification. I'm not asking questions in anticipation, but one of the discussion items, and since you're talking about that, was that the materials for the trash enclosure were going to be CMU. Isn't it? Wasn't it?
That's what the plan says.
The plan says.
The one that's up on the screen right now, it says CMU, Grand Blanc, dark gray.
That's correct. That's correct. I apologize. It's a CMU brick, not the cement brick here. Oh, thank you, Tom.
Actually, is where's it may sound, because it's probably heavy, yes. I don't know if you want to start, you can start down there. Be careful with it.
Would you like it? It's not that heavy.
Is that all you have on the architecture of the?
I do, but of course, if you have any questions,
Well, and
the architects
I'm sure
are
we'll-
here to answer
Okay,
any
great,
questions you have.
thank you. Thank you. Anything else from you right now that you want to
For
add?
the architecture,
Right,
I don't have anything else to add.
okay, all right, great. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on the Starbucks matter? No? Okay, we will go to the Plan Commission. We're going to start with Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. Let's see, where do we start? The stacking thing. In your write-up, you are expecting most of the traffic for them to actually go past and come in the East Drive and double back to Starbucks rather than going in at Northgate? That's
Yes.
what I've read out of it.
Yes,
Why
because
would you
instead of
think that?
going like that, it's easier just to go.
So,
I don't know if you can get that on record.
so if you, yeah, we probably can't.
Yeah, it's on video.
Yeah. So we have this up right now, and I had the same question as Commissioner Johnson. You have a mouse there, so if you could point how that would go when, oh, and it does work. So how it would go if we're stacking more than, if it just so happens that we have more than 8 cars in the lane, how, when you talked about going west and then coming back east, and so if you can explain that.
Sure. So here's the Starbucks where the mouse is, and then, so we have the car stack here, and we would expect most of the cars, they would find this easier, because again, whether it's Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or another coffee provider, people are generally go right in, right out on their way to work, and that's where they stop. As opposed to here, they can either come in here or go down here and around and back, and then, so this I think is generally the easiest route, least resistance for folks going to work. I mean, obviously, if the light is red at Dundee, we're building that right turn lane, so if someone, sees the light turns red and they want to go to Starbucks, obviously they'll take advantage of the right turn lane and do either come up here or go around.
Yeah, because I assume there's a Starbucks sign on the big monument sign at the corner there, and people are going to see that. And
yes,
I would probably be more likely to turn in there, but.
What we've heard from Starbucks is that their customer base starts to get into a habit and they start to learn the easiest route.
Well, they depend on people getting into that habit.
They do, yes, that's true.
Caffeinated habit, but yeah, I mean, and again, the first time you see it, yeah, that's very likely you'll see the sign, make the turn, but once you do it by there every day, you'll find the easiest, more convenient route.
Mr. Johnson, Commissioner Johnson, before you start again, ask another question, what I'd like to ask is that since we have Mr. Corcoran up here, if we could I will ask everybody if they have questions about the stacking, so we can, it might flow a little bit better as we have questions. So
no problem.
If you have any questions about the stacking, let's go with that first, and then I'll come back to you about the architecture and everything else.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, let me jump around then. Do we know offhand what the stacking numbers were for the Starbucks on Milwaukee? Because I know that backs up onto Milwaukee sometimes.
I do not have those figures.
Yeah, I should have asked you beforehand, but would you know?
No, I do not.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I do know that that's on a single lot right next to the street.
Right.
That's the other thing about this site is, again, we're not projecting any backup. I just lost my, there it is, into this east-west road. But even if it does, 1 or 2 cars, people who are coming to Starbucks or any of the other stores are going to come in either from this entrance, or these 2 directions. They're going to turn into the parking lot. So they don't even go in front of the Starbucks and could possibly have a conflict to get into a parking space for the ones that are parking to walk in, hang out at Starbucks or one of the other stores, depending what they're ultimately going to be. And so that doesn't interfere with that. And even if we back up 30 cars, that's what's it going to take for us to start interfering with Dundee Road or Northgate Boulevard or Parkway. So this is a lot different animal than that one on Milwaukee Ave.
But depending on what's going into B1, you could be affecting the exit from that drive-through, what appears to be a drive-through, without knowing what's in there.
Correct, and that's the anticipation. Probably it's going to be a bank and they'll have an ATM, but that's where we mentioned our report about the do not block intersection, and so that if someone does come, there we go. If someone coming from the east sees that there's a car sticking out here, they'll stop short of that exit and let that. So if there's any cars coming out of there, they can come out.
That's your hope.
Proceed.
That's your hope that they would do that.
Well, most people are good, obviously, not all.
And again, if it did get beyond 8 cars, then Starbucks would make an operational change to increase the number of employees to keep that car flow moving, so there wouldn't go beyond 8 cars.
Okay, I think that's all I have on the
Parking.
drive-through now.
Commissioner Creech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we still talking about the stacking?
Yes.
Yes.
I have no problem with the stacking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Blanova.
Thank you. I also don't think there's going to be any problem with the stacking because it's not on the main street. There are plenty of space there, I think. I don't have any questions about that.
Okay. Commissioner Kalis.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, like Commissioner Johnson, my only concern was coming out of the B1, the ATM exit. You know, do not block is a nice suggestion, but caffeinated Starbucks Gold Card members, myself being one, don't often always pay attention to that over the coffee. So it just, but I would assume that Starbucks, being the machine it is, can fix their operations to keep things moving. So because it's not on a main street like Milwaukee, I used to have an office in Barrington, and the one on Route 14 and Main Street is terrible. It's always stacked onto 14, and it's dangerous. And I'm glad that's not ever going to be a consideration here. So I feel better that it's a parking lot and not a main street. So assuming that Starbucks is correct and that they can, and how many thousands of stores do they have this potential problem that they might fix, I would assume they'd figure it out. So what the future tenant for B1, if they had a problem, how does a business like that address the problem with Starbucks if it becomes an issue where they're blocking this drive lane?
I would assume that if it became a problem, then a complaint would be made to management. Management would reach out to Starbucks to see what could be done. And if we needed to bring in additional signage or striping to deter cars from blocking that exit, then we would do whatever it takes to make sure that it remained open.
Right, so from a village standpoint, is there ever a point where like the bank could ever complain to the village about? Is it an ordinance violation sort of thing? Is that what happens?
It's entirely possible
Okay.
that like any other retail establishment or residential might go to the village first, but most likely the management team of Wheeling Town Center is probably going to get the first call.
Yeah, I just feel better knowing that there's several options if it does become the best laid plans, but operational and everything. So as long as there's things to be able to, for B1 to speak for themselves to fix the problem if it arises. So I'm good with that.
Great.
Thank you.
Commissioner Powers.
Where does, again, just so I know, where does the do not block intersection go? Is that in the exit from the drive-through of the B1 building? Is that where you're putting it? Are you going to stripe like the pavement in the parking lot? Like they do it like
In front of the
my
fire
neighborhood?
stations.
Yeah, exactly. Is that what the plan is for that? Or are you just putting up a sign like at the exit of the drive-through?
If that becomes a problem, we can do both. Both are not, we put a sign that would, where's my arrow? Right there facing to the east, and then we can also supplement that with some cross-hatching.
Okay, and I assume, this one may be for Brad, I don't know, there's going to be, Starbucks will have directional signage in the parking lot, so I assume, will they be placing that to try to entice the people to go in a specific way? I don't know if there'll be a sign maybe right off of Dundee, but like once you get into the town center, won't they have directional signage to point you, give you like a way to get in there and have like, I know sometimes the pavement is striped to say like drive-through or something like that. Will any of that be coming to us?
Most of the Starbucks signage is going to be within the Starbucks area. If you just use the mouse here, once you enter this area, that's where most of the Starbucks signage is. You're asking if there's going to be Starbucks signage out on Dundee?
No, I'm saying, I wouldn't necessarily say on Dundee, but let's say you're in that main drive there. Will there be any directional signage, like Starbucks directional signage to say go west if you're on the far east part of it, or?
As of right now, it's not in their plans.
Okay, that's fine. That's really all I wanted to ask about that. At least I'm glad you did the traffic study, and I did see you put a couple additional Starbucks in there, so it's more of improvement as far as justification than what was in there the last pack we had, so I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you.
That's it.
Commissioner Dorbane.
Thank you. I don't see a problem with the stacking. I've used the Starbucks over in Lexington, and even though it may have even six and sometimes 8 cars, it moves very fast, and I'm sure that this location is probably going to generate more. However, I think to Brad's point, that they can, internally, they can take care of that, because they're certainly not going to want people to not go there and head east and go to Dunkin' Donuts. So, I mean, they're going to do everything they can to keep them at Starbucks rather than having them go east. So I have no problem with it.
Thank you. My questions are around the data. And hold on one second. Okay. So and thank you for describing this. It helps immensely. So you make the statement that it is unlikely that the Wheeling location will see more than 8 queued vehicles. That's your statement. What's the basis of that? Is it your analysis of Table 1 combined with the Starbucks survey data summary from January of 2015? I mean, that's a pretty bold statement, and obviously the majority of the Plan Commission doesn't have a problem with the stacking, but I would like to hear something more substantive of this. And then also, we're talking data that is right now 3 years old. You've got actually 4 years old, depending upon when this data, 5 years old, depending upon when some of this data was pulled. And I'm sure that in 5 years, some of these areas had increased population. I'm thinking Schaumburg, Gulf Road east of Higgins from 2013. So is this the basis that you used for your analysis?
Okay, in terms of the data, it was collected around January 2015, the actual queuing data. That was done by, again, another consultant. That was not done by me. And what they did then is compare it, and then I supplemented that in my table too, with the amount of daily traffic going by that site. Now, that was based not on 2015, it was whatever was available in the IDOT website. They have a traffic volume map, and you can refer to their latest available counts to give you a sense of magnitude of traffic on that road compared to some of the other roads. And granted, the years don't match for each one of those. So to me, it was more of a, is it a very busy road, not so busy road, and to compare, and how it compares to what we have here on Dundee Road.
So your Table 1 which has the city intersection volume by comparison to Wheeling 47.2. I'm just trying to understand how you feel comfortable that eight vehicles is good enough. That, I mean, this space is good enough that we don't need the 10 that we originally had in our data, in our recommended, well, originally when we put the plat together. So I'm just.
Again, I'm sorry to interrupt. I want to say that, you know, we also get data from Starbucks. They do their own analytics to come up with what they think is the appropriate number, anticipated number of cars in the queue.
So is any of this data from Starbucks?
Not the data that Steve provided, but Starbucks has their own data where they feel sufficient with the anticipated 8-car max stacking for this location.
Okay, so, and I'm probably belaboring this more than I need to, but I need to feel comfortable with this as we're going through. So in Appendix A, and you probably, do you have that? You don't have it in here, no?
Sorry.
Okay, Appendix A, the header says Starbucks Survey Data Summary, January 2015, and then it indicates morning peak period 6 to 8, Group 1, and then Group 2, midday peak. You've got Schiller Park, Geneva, Schaumburg, which matches what you have in your Table 1, but the intersection volume is something was pulled from, for instance, using the top one, Schiller Park, Irving Park and Ruby. Intersection volume was 47.2. In comparison to Wheeling, it's 18% more. Maximum observed Q is 9. So all of this data is based upon the information that you grabbed from Starbucks and IDOT. Is that the?
Well, Walt Hamilton and IDOT.
Sure.
And for example, and just so I can explain the difference, for the first one, Schiller Park, they show an ADT of 36,300 in Appendix A. That's the volume for Irving Park. But Ruby Street itself is also a very busy street, and so I included that for the intersection volume.
Okay.
And, I mean, just to get the real short of it, coffee, whether it's Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts, or other, the majority of its traffic, not all of it, is drawn from the adjacent street system. And that's their customer base, is the cars that are going by the site, the big percentage of it. And when they have higher numbers, they see more traffic coming in, and that's why we're seeing less traffic at Dundee and Northgate compared to some of those, the higher queued ones. And so they're going to have a less to draw from, so again, less demand in comparison. And that's the essence of my conclusion that 8 should be more than adequate for here.
Well, thank you. That was, I feel a little bit better about it than, I still have a concern, but it seems that there are plans in place to rectify that if the situation occurs. As far as the signage you discuss in your memo, Mr. Corcoran, and let me find that. Recommended Starbucks, you recommended signage, you know, do not block the intersection. Is that going to go in place as it's being built, or is any type of signage, do not block the intersection, is that going to go in from the very beginning, or are we going to wait and test out?
I think that's a wait and see. If it's needed, then it will be implemented.
And, I mean, quite frankly, the Starbucks will be done in operation before building B, right?
Yes. B.
Is decided upon in operation. So we'll have a good sense then what's going on. So then it can be put in if the signage is needed or striping as building B is constructed.
Okay. Then my last question are the, and I think probably the saving grace for everything is probably the peak hours. It's mentioned here in the, I'm looking at the appendix, 6 to 10. Is that true peak hours, 6 to 10, or is it a shorter window?
The data was collected 6 to 10, but I mean, the reality is it's probably 6:30 to 9 or 6:30 to 8:30.
6 to 10 is confirmed. That is the peak hours for Starbucks.
You have a little thing in your ear?
I do. I have a little thing in my ear, yeah.
Talking to somebody that's watching it on TV saying, yes, 6 to 10 is good.
Don't tell all my secrets, Jim.
Okay, all right. I'm a bit uncomfortable with it, but it's the sense that I get from the board, we're good to go on the stacking. So thank you, Mr. Corcoran, and thank you for the thorough giving me a little more background on how you collect the data. Thank you. So now let's talk about architecture, landscaping, trash enclosure, and we'll go the same route. We'll start with Commissioner Johnson.
Okay, well, out of those issues, my biggest concern is the trash enclosure. Was any other options discussed? The fact that we've waited so long for this project and it's going to be beautiful, and then to stick a gray blockhouse in the parking lot for trash, which is going to be difficult for waste management to pick up and everything else. Can't we come up with something better?
The location of the trash enclosure changed a number of times. Part of it was based on recommendations from Starbucks, and part of it was based on making sure that it would be able to service not only the Starbucks, but the other properties in that area. Actually, based on where it is located, we've had conversations with Waste Management, and it is at a very convenient location for pickup. So we're actually very satisfied with the location, and Starbucks is very satisfied with the location. They've signed off on it, and the color of and the material, actually the material was recommended by the staff members, and then the color was selected because we use dark gray, not only in our residential building, but in all of these other retail buildings. We're going to be using a dark gray material along with
the one that came through here was kind of light gray, like cinder block gray is what just came through here.
Well, these are the materials that we're bringing in. These are the colors that we're using, and so we're all very comfortable. The architect, ownership, the tenants, we've all signed off on the location and the color, and also from a feasibility standpoint, Waste Management has signed off on the location. So.
Okay. Well, I'm not happy with that aspect, but that's all I have to say on it at this point, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Creech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also am very concerned about the trash container location. I think it's better than where it was before, right in front of Starbucks. You're also giving up 10 parking spots for the change for Starbucks and this trash location. And you increase the size of the platforms that are for B1 and B2. So you have more square footage over there for the two buildings. And I believe Building A is actually bigger than what it was originally configured. I can't see why you can't find another spot for those trash containers, possibly in that median between the two buildings. Starbucks might be just fine with where the trash container is, but
Yeah.
What about B1 and B2?
I'm sorry, you want to locate the trash enclosure where? Right here? Is that where you want it?
No, in the back, all the way to the north end of the lot.
I'm not, help me out, Jeff. Tell me.
Right where you're pointing.
Right
where
here?
you had the arrow.
Wait, the arrows went, oh, here, right here?
Right there.
Okay, so we can't do that. Sorry. Waste Management can't access the trash back there. We can't have their trucks going through the drive-throughs.
Why not?
Turning radius is, it's
They
just,
back right in.
it's not convenient.
Back right in, they just have to be there early in the morning, like they do in a lot of businesses.
They would, and they just, they really don't, they don't want it back there. It's just not, it's just
Actually,
not
have a pretty
convenient for them.
sizable drive-through by that B1 configuration. And actually, you could probably move that building over a little bit to make that median even wider. And it would be a lot better and more accessible to all three locations.
Except that it wouldn't be able to service location C. And again, I'm just
Location
basing
C's
it.
got its own internal trash.
I'm just basing it on meetings we've had with Waste Management and their pickup service and their preferences for locations and ease of pickup, so.
Well, I'm not buying that because I see all the garbage trucks going in and out of every little corner in the city of Chicago. I'm sure that they could be able to back up into that spot.
Okay. I mean, currently, I'm sorry, thank you, I appreciate that, John. Currently, we have a lot of landscaping there because I do remember when we were going through the
It'll cover the containers then.
PUD, it was really important to make sure that the exposure on Dundee
I agree.
had a lot of those plantings, and so I think it's important that we maintain that, and I don't think that we want to replace the landscaping with a cement brick trash enclosure. I'm sorry, I don't
Or
think
not,
that's
you'll
the
be
right
putting
location.
landscaping, you can get more landscaping around it on Dundee than you can around in that little strip in the parking lot.
Jeff, I appreciate your comments. I honestly don't think it's going to work there.
Well, I would look into it.
Okay.
That's all I have, thank you.
Commissioner Blanova.
I don't have any comments regarding this. Thank you.
Pardon?
I don't have any comments
No
regarding this.
comments? Okay. Commissioner Kalis.
Also, nothing more than what was already discussed. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner Powers.
Thanks. In the renderings that you provided, did you show any gutters and downspouts on the building? I may have missed it, but is that in a rendering somewhere, just to see where that is?
Yeah, I don't, oh yeah, there's one.
Oh, there's,
Yeah, that's on a perspective, it's not on the, oh, there it is on the elevation, yeah, we do have them.
Okay. As far as the patio, I know I asked for this in Lexington. Can you guys put a couple of planter boxes on the railing in the patio area? Planter boxes, like put flowers and stuff in there?
I think the tenant can do that, I think that's up to the tenant, and yeah, that's.
Did you ask the tenant to try to do that?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. I also noticed that the footprint got bigger and like the parking was in the front, it got moved across the aisle. Is that typically what happens? I mean, it's like we had a pad sitting there, but it's like, is it after, how did this kind of transpire? Is it after you have discussion with Starbucks, they say, well, I see what you're depicting here, but I don't really want that, I want it to move? Is that basically what happens? I was just surprised at the stuff that changed, some of it.
In all honesty, Starbucks is driving the bus,
Okay.
and I'm just a passenger.
I appreciate you saying that.
So, you know, they have a model and they have a number of employees who look at the floor plan and what is, from an operational standpoint, going to work. And so what we were given 3 years ago has changed, and that's because their model has changed based on, you know, all of their analysis on their 27,000 stores that are throughout the world in terms of what works and what's a better way to design the store. And so it's always changing, and I'm sure in 5 years they're going to come up with a new floor plan and a new footprint. But this is what they gave us, and so we made it work. We really wanted to be accommodating. And that to be honest with you, goes for any tenant that we work with, because it is such a difficult time right now to deal with retailers. Even if it's not someone who competes with Amazon, and most of the tenants that we're bringing in here are food and beverage and entertainment and service-oriented businesses, but we still are doing whatever we can to accommodate them, because we feel that's necessary in order to get this project off the ground and make it successful.
So if this gets approved, I was kind of curious, are you ready to start moving on it?
That's a good question. So let's talk about the timing and where we are with the project. All the site work has been done. So if you drive over to the site, you'll see that all the underground infrastructure and the streets and the roadways and the curbs are in place. And actually, it's really important that we get foundations in the ground for Starbucks and CityWorks and a lot of these other tenants this spring, because Starbucks wants to open up late fall, and then CityWorks, the other tenant that we're going to be talking about later tonight, wants to open up in December. So we're really trying to push forward to make sure that we can get foundations in the ground to work with the staff members at Village. We've had several meetings and conversations with staff members. Brooke and Andrew and Mr. Melanofi and Spondilis have all been very helpful to make sure that this project gets delivered on time. And yes, we are ready to go. Sorry for the long-winded answer,
that's
but
good.
I think it's important that everybody knows where we're at from a construction schedule and what our plan is moving forward, and how important it is that we get our foundations in this spring.
Because I appreciate the statement you just made, because that answers a lot of the questions why things look different, and now you made that clear, so I do appreciate that. The trash enclosure, yeah, I still see that as an issue. To be honest with you, is it going to be big enough? It's going to be basically there to serve buildings A and B1 and B2, right?
Yes.
So somehow they're going to have to figure out how to get out there to throw their trash out. And they feel that, in between those tenants, they feel that's an adequate sized trash enclosure. Is that right?
Correct. As of right now, we're only in negotiations for B1.
That's fine.
Which is an unnamed bank with a drive-through, and then B2, we see that being a non-food use.
Okay.
That wouldn't produce that much trash. If we need to bring in additional trash enclosures, we can always do that.
Okay. So I just would like to talk about the CMU on the trash enclosure, because I know at CityWorks, it seems like CMU is being talked about. So can you talk, I read the manufacturer's pamphlet too. So what is your experience with the usage of CMU, its durability, how it lasts, does it have to be maintained? And I saw the sample there. Is that CMU is specifically for the trash enclosure, or is that going to be used at CityWorks also? Could somebody just talk to me about the durability of CMU, the maintenance aspect of it, and stuff like that? That would help me out.
I can do that. Tom Marsofsky with Callison RTKL, architects of record for this project, the whole project.
And your address, please?
200 South Michigan Avenue.
Thank you, sir.
Not Wheeling. So the CMU, it's basically a concrete masonry unit. That's what CMU means. Mm-hmm. This is very durable material. It's very common construction material. We're going to bring a block of it as well, but I think it would be distracting. The only difference between the typical heavy-duty concrete block and what we're proposing is the face finish, and so that's a face sample. So the CMU is formulated, it's poured concrete with a special aggregate to give you that matrix look. And there are actually many colors. Those are the colors that we've picked for some of the other buildings. It is, of course, concrete, so concrete's obviously very durable. And in this case, for how durable it is in the enclosure, it should be fine. I mean, I know people are a little reckless when they park, but if you see a concrete block structure, I think you're going to be careful. There are a couple of zones on either side to make sure people stay away from it or don't park too close to it. And it's also treated with a waterproofing coating.
Okay.
That's in the spec as well.
Okay. All right, I have nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Dorbin.
Thank you. As far as the question of the trash area, was there, I mean, I know it's moved several times. Did you entertain any other areas other than where you left it?
We did. We went back and forth on a couple of other locations, and this was the location that ultimately we felt was best suited to service Starbucks, the other outlet building, and not interfere with any of the other items. I mean, I think at one point we had the trash over here, and then what was that? Oh, right. At one point we had the trash over here. So we did look at a number of different site plans, trash enclosure locations.
Did you consider, I mean, I really don't have a problem with where it is, but I'm wondering, did you consider moving it further down to one end or the other so that it's like, it appears like it's kind of in the middle there?
Correct. We wanted to make sure that it was somewhat in the middle so that it could service both of the outlet buildings. Yes.
So it would, in other words, it would be serving Starbucks as well as B1 and B2 as well?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, okay, because if you moved it further that way, then you'd be...
The anticipation is that
Competing
Starbucks is going to generate more trash and make more trips, and so we wanted to accommodate them, so.
Okay. And how are you planning on, are you planning on doing some landscaping around there so that it's not quite like a...
Actually, the landscape plan that's here now, if you can expand that, it shows landscaping right in front of it.
I don't know if I could
Yeah, we
zoom
can't
in.
expand.
Oh.
It's not an iPad.
Can't do this?
No. Sorry.
Okay.
Can't hit the plus.
I guess I don't have an issue with it. Trash has to go somewhere. I mean, if the number of places you've looked to put it and it didn't work, I guess that, I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'll start with the trash enclosure, and only from the aspect of, one, having it on Dundee Road is not acceptable to me. I think of a bank that's in our town right now that the trash enclosure is right on Dundee Road, and I look at it all the time when I drive by it, and it drives me nuts. It's ugly, and it's terrible. I think it's masonry. I try not to look at it. So from a location perspective, if this is the best we can do, that's great. And I understand that. The question I have is around the block that's being used, and of course, this is going to be on your next docket item, is the CMU. Anybody have a chance to look at our zoning code? Our zoning code specifically says that CMU is a prohibited material to use. Now, we have said concrete block / CMU, split face CMU, okay? In the brochure that was in here, it's called burnished stone. So what is the difference? Because, we're going to, it's not going to, you're going to have to go through a red face test at the village board. And they're going to ask this very question because for years, we equate, concrete block split face is not something that we have in this village. So there's going to be some convincing here on this CMU, because not so much for a trash enclosure, but you've got poorhouse coming before us.
The essential difference is how the concrete block is made. It has a matrix of what's called aggregate, so it's basically the stones and the mortar that's in between. Can you give me a mic? Here, I'll just step up here. So you see the color is, and there's literally 30 or 40 different colors that you can get. We picked these two because they went with the CityWorks palette. They have copper and so on. The other interesting aspect about it is the matrix, which is the stones that are in the stones and aggregate that are inside the block, are very different than a regular concrete. Regular concrete is, if you know anything about construction, it's big pieces of gravel and then there's a cement that holds it all together. That's how a regular CMU concrete masonry unit is made. This is a little bit different. It's much denser and it has this very close grain, if you will. And then once they make it, they actually polish the face or burnish it is the thing. So that's very different than the split face, which is taking a concrete block and making one face a little thicker, and then they break it off randomly to make it look like stone. And we're not doing that. Ours is going to be very flat and smooth and have this grain that you see here in this. That's the big difference. It is a burnish. It's not a new product, but it's newer. It's probably newer than your ordinance was. That's so that we felt at least we would bring it to you to see if that was acceptable.
How easy is it to clean?
It is a concrete material, so you can spray it. You're talking about maybe graffiti and things like that? Mm-hmm.
Or usual dirt and things like that that stain? Is it easily stained?
No, it's an inert material.
Okay, all right. To the architecture, and thank you very much. The fencing around the patio area, what is that? Is it mentioned anywhere? I don't recall what the material is.
Okay, that's a tenant selection item. So
it's on our drawing.
It's on your perspective drawing, yeah.
No, you got to remember, it's on our drawing. It goes before the village board.
Right.
And we need to know what that is.
Okay.
Do we? I would think we do. I should have brought that up with Brooke, and I completely forgot, and then I saw it when Commissioner Powers was asking about planters. We have bike racks. It's a bike rack. Yeah. Do we have a description of the bike rack also? Speaking of things.
No, what did he get?
So we checked.
If you could use the microphone, sir.
Full disclosure, Andrew Johnson from our office worked for Starbucks for a number of years, so he's very familiar with their standards, and he identified it as black iron.
Black iron.
So it's an iron fence, like a typical fence that you find in the city of Chicago, as opposed to an aluminum fence.
Okay.
We can identify it further.
We need to put that in as a condition.
It's not necessarily black either, just iron.
It's not black.
Yeah. It's white in there, so.
Do you think it would be like a silverish color?
I guess that's a tenant preference, but we could say yes.
Again.
I don't think white.
Yeah.
You know,
Preferred
I
color.
can't put in their tenant preference, and it's not something that we like.
Right.
Okay. You need the thing in the ear so you can talk.
So it's black in color.
Black in color. Great. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to probably ask more questions. Bike racks. I see on this picture here, there's a bike rack there. is that the exact location of bike racks?
Yeah, did you base this on the plans that we got from Starbucks? Yeah, so, correct.
Okay. All right. And apparently that's the style, too.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
they show a bike rack in by the front doors on one of the elevations, or one of the floor plans. So they actually show
Is it on the floor plan?
two separate locations.
What page, Commissioner Creech?
8 are,
Page in the packet. Oh, 8? Okay, got 8.
I'm sorry,
No, that's okay.
34.
34.
I did not see that.
Which is probably too close to the front door, but
Wow. Okay, thank you. Okay, great. And is there, there were some, I'm back to the landscaping, that we're approving a landscape plan tonight, and the landscape plan that's in here looks like it's the whole piece of property. But are we just approving what is around the Starbucks and what is in front of the trash enclosure?
Yes, with this docket, we're only approving, correct, the landscaping around the drive-through lanes adjacent directly to the building, and then here where it's affected by the trash enclosure location.
Okay. And that will all be irrigated per our code?
Yes.
Okay. And just one more question. Do you know of and this has got nothing to do with the docket item, can you give me a location, sir, where you've used this burnished stone that I can go see? Do we have?
So I think the main location that the architects are working on is a very large development called Pinecrest, which is, 200,000 square feet of retail and.
Here? I missed this. Oh, it was in the poorhouse.
Oh, so this is a, right, because you asked for a local example.
Yeah.
And so.
I was looking at the Starbucks and completely forgot about this.
This is a building at 1846 West Division that uses the burnished CMU. You could see it on the left. So that was the best we could come up with, and for a last-minute example of a local building that uses it. But Tom has used the burnished CMU on other projects that he's developing, very large-scale, high-end retail mixed-use developments.
So in the next couple of weeks or so, if you could email Brooke some places in the suburbs, so I don't have to, I'm a suburbanite, do you have?
We already did, yesterday and earlier today.
Okay, that's fine.
I received this example.
It just addresses in an email, in
Maybe I
addition to
didn't
the
get that one.
images.
Okay, great.
Just clarification to what Brad was referring to, there's this development is what, 13 acres?
If you get closer to the microphone.
Sorry. 16. So this development is 16 acres. We have another development that's similar to this called Pinecrest, which is in the northeast suburbs of Cleveland. It's 52 acres.
That's a little bit too far.
Yeah, it is. And it's 16 buildings, and I'd say about half of them are getting the burnished CMU as exterior cladding. And we did share photographs of some of those buildings that were particularly on the REI. REI was one of the major tenants and wanted a CMU building, and we kind of upped the game a little bit and said, here's something that's a little nicer than just CMU. And in fact, that was the inspiration to try to use some of those same materials here, which we'll talk about CityWorks. But that development is got 300,000 square feet of retail. So it's considerably bigger than this one, and also very much a luxury
Interesting,
product.
you mentioned Chicago, Cleveland, big cities. I was hoping for something, suburbanite that we
closer.
can, and just simply because of the fact that from a zoning perspective, we utilize and look at other suburban towns, villages that have code and might have code with that. So how they're working with that.
In fact, it's not in Cleveland, it's in, if you know where Shaker Heights is, it's near Shaker Heights. And
Still too far, but
True,
I get
true.
the point
Also,
of.
my family, they'll FaceTime
Right,
you.
so they'll FaceTime me, okay, great, thank you.
They definitely have appearance codes and very
Right.
similar approaches,
Exactly,
and it was
so-
accepted
All right, great.
at that point.
All right, thank you.
And we did provide some, a series of addresses in and around Chicagoland. I think they went in by email to
Okay.
Brooke.
And I'll
staff.
get with Brooke, and she can share it when she finds them. I'm sure she gets tons of emails. I have, does anybody have any questions about the landscaping? I mean, the landscaping overall is good and it's fine, so there it is. So I am done. Do we hear a motion on docket number 2017-17?
Can we have some more questions?
Sure.
Couple more.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Go ahead, okay.
Go ahead.
Back to the bike rack real quick. On the page previous to that, page 33 of our packet, there's a note for bike racks to be determined, and there's no number 13 shown anywhere, so these drawings aren't matching up.
Is it? Stacking page. Yeah.
Number 13.
Yes, I see that.
Lucky 13?
So this sheet we received later, and it does show bike racks in this location. Can someone confirm if this is accurate?
Yeah, because these were
On the
received
patio?
the same day, it looks like.
Yeah,
This spec sheet.
Hello, Jeffrey Gaither, Real Estate Development Manager for Starbucks Coffee Company, address 564 West Randolph in Chicago. So the floor plan that you're looking at right now is a preliminary schematic for the store design that we're currently working to finalize for this Starbucks location. So I can't see the actual notation from the screen, but where we're discussing the bike racks to the west of the main entrance, that's currently where we are looking to have the bike racks placed. But again, it is a preliminary plan, and our final plans will be submitted when we are ready to submit for permit to the village, which would come after the shell building permit is given to the developer here.
Are those the only two bike racks?
At this time, yes.
So the depiction and the architecture with the, I don't know where that was at, but.
Yeah, so there was a comment made before that this schematic and I think the one on the page before it didn't match. That's because, again, as I mentioned before, we're going through different iterations of design. And these are preliminary plans that, again, are yet to be finalized, but will be once we're ready to submit for permit.
And so there will not be a bike rack as shown here?
The schematic is from, so right now what we're looking, this is looking northwest, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, yeah, obviously the placement of the bike rack here doesn't match what we have in our schematic. So as of today, we're not planning to have a bike rack where we're showing here on the schematic. Yeah.
Commissioner Johnson, do you have any other questions?
No, I'm a little concerned about the as of today comment,
Yeah.
because things are going to seem to be a little liquid here.
And we'll get to that. Commissioner Powers, what were your questions?
Is there going to be any exterior lighting on the building?
Yes.
Do we have examples of that?
Do we have spec sheets on the lighting, and where is that depicted on any of the elevations, or is it just signage that's going to be lit? If there's going to be if there's going to be exterior lighting, I think we kind of need at least see a spec sheet or something with what fixtures are going on there. I don't know.
So as of right now, it's interior lighting and signage, and then site lighting. And so if Starbucks decides that they want to incorporate some lighting onto the building, but at this time, we do not have any lighting other than the interior lighting, the signage lighting, and the site lighting.
Okay, that was the only question I had.
Okay.
What is site lighting?
Site lighting?
Yes.
Site lighting, like parking lot lighting and...
Got it. Okay, general site.
General site lighting.
Okay,
yeah.
because it could be specific site to Starbucks. Okay, all right. Brad, Mr. Friedman, and gentleman from Starbucks mentioned that all of this is preliminary. And it's our expectation when we have something come before us that these things are going to be final, so that when they go to the village board has everything in a nice, neat little packet, tied in a nice little bow that says that here's where these things are going to be. And granted, it's bike racks, but what else is there? You mentioned lighting, and granted, you've said that interior signs and just site lighting. I'm not certain how to.
Well, Chairperson Rafato, like, this is what you have, and it's a pretty final plan. If they have changes at final, then they'd have to come to you for obviously like an amendment to their site plan.
Okay.
And the normal procedure, just like we do with all other businesses. So
Right.
if there is anything,
So if they refine their plans at building permit, it would return here.
Okay.
Or review.
So right now, for instance, the bike racks, that's where they're going to go. And if you revise them, you're coming back to us.
Right, I've written a condition of approval that the bike rack location will be inside the patio as shown on the floor plan. The location of bike racks on other plans is not approved.
Great, that's good, thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes.
Back to the trash enclosure. Seeing as Starbucks and both units in B are supposed to be using this thing, I'm just wondering if somewhere down the road, if the people in B say, wow, that's just too far to walk, are they going to be coming back to us and saying, we want another blockhouse built in the parking lot for us?
Commissioner Johnson, it's probably entirely possible, but that's not, I don't think we can act upon anything in this, for this particular docket. Speculation is, all well and good, but it's, something like that happens, that impacts parking, that impacts a whole host of things that I'm sure Mr. Friedman doesn't want to get into.
And then one final thing on the enclosure. Can they at least incorporate some kind of pattern or stripe or something so it's not just a big brick house?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so you let's say there's an alternative lighter gray that's introduced to give a stripe.
Yes, if we have to be
I
stuck
actually think
with
that's a
that,
great idea,
at least
and
make it a little more attractive
Consider it done.
Thank you.
You're
No
hired.
problem.
Want to add that? Make a trash enclosure more decorative.
Yes.
It's not the first time
It's not
this
the
board's
first
asked
time, you're
for it.
exactly right. But I would much prefer to have it there in that location than along Dundee Road. I'm sorry, but. And then once you're done typing or keying that in, if you could read what we have before I ask for a motion.
Okay. I only have 3 conditions. 1, that the patio fencing shall be black iron. 2, that the bike rack location will be inside the patio as shown on the floor plan. The location of bike racks on other plans is not approved. And 3, the trash enclosure shall have a horizontal stripe using a lighter CMU color.
Or darker.
How about a contrasting?
Contrasting, yes.
Contrasting. Okay.
Okay, so do I hear a motion on docket number 2017-17?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Dorban, second by Commissioner Kalis. Mr. Secretary,
Commissioner Dorban,
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis,
Yes.
Commissioner Bonova,
Yes.
Commissioner Creech,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers votes yes, and Chairman Rafato.
yes. Motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are going to take a 5-minute break.
Yay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett. There. Just right there, right. And then that one and that one's yours. Thank you. That one's yours, yep. That's my pen, thank you. Okay, calling docket number 2017-16, City Works Eatery and Poorhouse, Lot 8, Building H1 of the Wheeling Town Center Subdivision, special use site plan approval of a sit-down restaurant. Mr. Secretary. Okay. Mr. Secretary.
Docket number 2017-16, WTC LLC, contract owner is seeking special use site plan approval as required under Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-05, mixed use districts, Chapter 19-10, use regulations, Chapter 19-12, site plan approval requirements and associated sections in order to establish a sit-down restaurant in Lot 8 of the Wheeling Town Center subdivision. Address to be determined, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Brooke, anything to add?
The staff report and submittals of the petitioner are part of the public record.
Thank you. Mr. Friedman, the floor is yours.
Okay, so I think you guys know that we signed a lease with City Works. We had made that announcement a while back for our groundbreaking as well. We're really excited to bring City Works Eatery and Poorhouse to the Wheeling Town Center. We always envisioned this location being a co-anchor to the space. It's right up against the plaza, directly across from the theater entrance, and we're very excited to have this restaurant user come and provide us with an 8,000 square foot restaurant, bar, and grill. City Works Eatery and Poorhouse is owned and operated by Bottleneck Management. They have like 16 locations throughout the states. Most of them are right here in the Chicago land area, downtown. I've been to a number of their restaurant locations. All of them have a great ambiance, good service, American food with a twist. They really create a great place for people to congregate, gather, watch sporting events. So we're really excited to have them here. We've been working with them, their architects, the ownership team, our architects, our general contractors, to come up with building elevations and plans that are acceptable to everybody. We really like the design that has been settled on here. It gives the exact look and feel that the tenant wants to achieve. We did go a little bit beyond our budget, but we felt that it was important to make sure that we were able to deliver a building that was going to have a big impact, make a really nice statement for the Wheeling Town Center based on its location. And so we're really happy to be here in front of you to get approval for this City Works building elevation and appearance review.
Great. Thank you. So, speaking of appearance review, how would we like to start there? Whoever wants to do that, it's going to the same.
So you want us to go through the architectural materials and elements?
Yes, and
Okay.
landscape plan, all of those fine things that we need to approve for tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Tom, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can talk about the architectural.
Can you go to the elevations?
You can do that right here. Oh. Actually, just click down. All right. I think,
Right there,
you go.
that's
Yep.
fine. North elevation, there are a number of materials.
If you could speak closer
Sorry.
to the microphone.
There are a number of materials that are shown on the elevations that are on the table, and I'll have my lovely assistant, Brad, hold them up. Starting with a couple of signature elements. You see here the copper tile. It's actually real copper tile. That's the back. There you go.
Doing a good job.
Right. And then they have their logo, which is part of their sign, which is a separate permit. The next material, which is behind the City Works sign, is a metal siding. This is the profile, not the color. The color is the black underneath the tile, which is right right there. So that's up high. It's pretty much used on the perimeter, on the high part of the building. We have two heights of the building. There's towers, of course, on the corners. The highest part you see here is the dining room, and then the slightly lower part is the back of house. Let's see, let's go this way. There. The next material to talk about is what looks like wood, but is in fact a manufactured product. It is cementitious in nature, but it looks pretty real. We're calling it El Dorado stone because it is a cementitious material, but in appearance it looks like wood planks. And this was a design element that the tenant had asked for.
These two.
And then the next material is the lighter color that you see down here, and that is a similar cementitious material made to look like limestone. So these things are all prefabricated, shipped to the site in units, and are laid up like masonry. So very efficient installation, made to be used outside, obviously. The last couple of materials, significant materials, are, of course, the glazing is clear glass with a storefront system. The metal is right next to you. It's the black. And I think that's all the elements. Oh, sorry. On the the west side and the east side and the south side, we have the burnished block, which we have two colors of. You saw the gray earlier, and there's also a tan as well. I would like to point out a couple of other features. These big windows are in fact an operable window door system that allows them to be retracted in nice weather, so you could have an indoor-outdoor dining experience on the patio. And then at this end right here, you can kind of see it here. The green area is actually a bocce court. There's the summary page of all the materials. Examples. I'm not sure, Brooke, if you included photos of the burnished block used at Pinecrest.
I did not receive.
Okay. We brought some if we wanted to add them to your computer, or otherwise we have some photographs as well.
Sure, you could pass those out.
Yeah. Sure. So we brought pictures of, Pinecrest is not quite open yet. It's opening in May, but some of the buildings are 95% complete. So we took photographs recently to show you a little bit better what a whole building of this material could look like. It's not exactly these colors necessarily, and it's a site photograph, so it's not color adjusted and all that, but it's, I think, a pretty good indication of the quality you can expect.
Anything else that you would like to add?
With regards to the building, I don't.
By the way, I just want to say that. Yeah, we put a little valet cover canopy because we're going to have valet parking. If we go back to the site plan based on the original site plan that was created, we always intended to have. Yeah, let me take this. We always intended to have valet parking right here, and also valet parking right here, and so valet parking right here, and then the cars stack here, and so there's a little canopy there, and we can have a like a key box for the valet, and who's ever working the valet or who's ever waiting for their car, if it's raining, we'll have a little canopy. So we really did, put a lot of time and thought into all the little components to make sure that it would all come together and work with the site plan. Something else maybe that I should talk about is, and I'm going to skip down to the pages where we talk about the site plan changes, but the building did shift a little bit, the footprint shifted, and, again, this is based on the tenant floor plan that was provided to us by their architects. And they give us the floor plan based on how they can achieve maximum seating, back of the house, kitchen, workspace areas. And so we took that plan and then made minor adjustments to our site plan. And as you can see here, we've actually made the building a little bit longer. And so when we did that, we shifted the walkway. And not only did we shift the walkway, but we also shifted all of the landscaping elements of the plaza. So the center focal point here lines up here. So there was, we didn't change the design or the materials of the plaza. All we did is we took everything and we kind of shifted it down so it would all line up from a visual standpoint. So I just wanted to let you guys know that we put a lot of time and thought into that as well.
So just for clarification, Mr. Friedman, in this drawing here, the red outline is the new building?
No, the red outline was the original PUD building.
You.
And then this red building, which is 8,152 square feet, is the new building.
Got it.
And then this black outline is their patio space area.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Yep, no problem.
Anything else to add?
I think I'm done with CityWorks. I'm going to pass it over to you guys for questions.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak on this matter? Okay, thank you. We'll go to the Plan Commission. Commissioner Creech.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it looks great. I'm very excited about CityWorks. I do have a couple questions about the patio. The seating, permanent, stays year-round?
So the seating won't be permanent, but the fence will.
So are they going to be like bringing that in very cold weather, just storing it somewhere else, or?
Yes, I mean, that's really up to the tenant on when they want to bring their patio furniture in and out. But they have expressed to us the desire to keep the fence permanent, but to have the seating really be more seasonal. And yes, they would then bring it in, during winter months and store it.
Well, I would gather that would have to be off-site, but now is that lighting or is that heating, lighting?
Those are actually, I think those are heat lamps.
They are.
Yeah.
It's the California style outdoor heating, freestanding, they're movable.
No, so they are movable, they're not part of the
That's right.
the fence?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have. I think it's great. Looking forward to seeing it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Powers.
Thanks. As far as the corrugated material where the CityWorks is mounted on, the only thing I wonder about that, do you guys feel like it's strong enough that like hail or something wouldn't ding it or anything like that? How durable is that material?
The photographs that you have that got passed around, that was an REI, that they're using that as a full height, like 20-foot tall tower element. So they're very confident that it's a thick enough gauge that it will be fine in any inclement weather.
Okay. I was on gutters and downspouts and this one. How does the water runoff work in this building? Is it internal?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a big enough building that we could have roof drains that drain internally.
I mean, I really don't have anything else. I think the building looks great. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. I think it looks great, too. The copper tiles, do they oxidize to green like the old copper shingles?
I'm not exactly sure on the spec. I have my understanding is that it's coated to stay looking like copper.
Okay.
But we can clarify that with.
Yeah, I would like to know, because that would really change the look of the building.
I think that it's their signature element, or one of their signature elements, and as those of you know, Poorhouse, not all of them had that, and as they rebranded as CityWorks, they've added more elements that identify them as CityWorks with the logo. That's a very kind of old school Chicago logo, and the copper goes with it, so I think it stays the same color.
Thanks. And then the only other thing I happened to spot on drawing L1.3, which is page 83 of ours. I like the enclosed trash enclosure being part of the building, but it looks like there's a fire hydrant right in front of it.
Right here?
Yep.
Your eyes are better than mine.
Well, I was wondering what that symbol was until I saw it somewhere else on the drawings. That's a fire hydrant.
Well, that's a bad place for a fire hydrant.
Yeah, and especially if you got all your underground stuff done.
Well, if that is in fact the location of a fire hydrant, then it's going to have to be relocated and shifted to the north or to the south, and that'll have to be vetted out with our civil engineer and the fire chief.
Okay. That's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do we need to add something about that?
I don't think so. These plans are not civil engineering drawings or utility plans, so I don't think that's the intent of these sheets.
Okay.
But we'll confirm with.
It will certainly be reviewed at permit.
Commissioner Kalis.
Thank you. My only question is about the durability of the stuff, which we talked about, the CMU, and
yes,
I absolutely love the look of it, just the contrasting colors and different textures and things. It looks fabulous. Bocce ball's a nice touch.
Yeah. I think they're competing with pinstripes.
Yep.
If they can hang with pinstripes, I think they'll do all right. So that's the feel that I get, and I know that that's I love going there, and I know a lot of people do. So it seems like a very elegant yet laid back sort of vibe. So I like it. But as far as the materials being durable, it's been addressed. So that was the only concern. Looks great. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. I also, I just realized that I don't think we mentioned the overhead doors, the glass doors, which are being incorporated into this design. So those glass doors that you see there, they're roll-up doors, so they open up in the summertime. I think it's a really nice, cool feature. I just wanted to let you know about that.
Anything else, Commissioner Kalis?
No, that's it for me. Thank you.
Commissioner Blanova.
Thank you. Beautiful building. I don't have any questions except one.
Could you lower your
Oh, yeah, that would be nice, right?
microphone?
Thank you. It's a beautiful building. The only question I have is approximately when it's going to be done?
December.
December. Oh, wow. Beautiful.
Holy cow.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Commissioner Dorban.
I love the building, and I know you're going to be surprised I have no questions.
Thank you.
The first.
Okay, thank you. So, a couple of things. It mentions, I see the hours, 11:30 a.m., 11 p.m. and we talk about 25 employees during the peak. Okay. And we know parking is a premium. And I know when you were here when we discussed way back when, we talked about employee parking in the parking structure.
Yeah.
Is that going to hold true for this?
Yeah, we
also?
still have 100 parking spaces in the residential parking garage that will be for the retail employees. But just to alleviate any concerns you have on parking, we've actually updated our parking study based on now that we have a actual seating count and a number of employees, where before we were just estimating. We actually now have an abundance of parking. And so we've provided an updated parking study, and based on the updated parking study, we've actually increased our ratio in terms of the seat count, the parking number, and because of that, I believe we've been given an opportunity to increase the amount of restaurant space that comes into the town center based on the updated parking study that's been provided.
Good. That's good. There's a comment in the packet on the landscape plan. The exact landscaping shown on the renderings is not shown on the landscape plan. That commission may wish to discuss. So, Brooke, I know you put that in there. Can you explain that? I was going to ask you.
What page is that?
It's page 4. Page 4.
Oh, that's regarding the patio landscaping.
Okay, so how do we work that in? Or is that an issue?
You can allow them flexibility to add landscaping to their patio, much like you requested, but did not require it of Starbucks. So I think it's just worth noting that it's in the rendering. You could require it, or you could, I mean, the strictest would be to require an exact landscape plan. Or you could allow them to plant it as they see fit.
Around the patio.
Right.
How does anybody feel about that? Commissioner Creech or Commissioner Dorban? How about the landscaping around the patio? Should we require it, request it?
I would like to see.
Bring down your.
I'm sorry. I would like to see some landscaping around that patio.
Okay, so we're requesting landscaping around the patio.
And so when building permits are sent in for review, they will have landscaping details provided by the tenant.
For the patio, because this right here, the landscaping, is the landscaping that we're approving.
So this is our landscape plan that you're looking at right now? And so we are providing the landscaping for the pedestrian plaza, landscaping around the building. The landscaping that you're talking about would be provided by the tenant, right?
Okay.
You're talking about this, I know what you're, this stuff here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not landscaping that we provide. That's a, it's a concept drawing, it's a perspective to show you, what we think it's going to look like, and then when the tenant provides their drawings, permit-ready drawings, it will have the details in there.
Okay. So what we can ask is, and what we would like, will require landscaping in that area, but we expect the plan to come back to us.
I think it should be seasonal.
Seasonal. Sure, I mean, but it's a landscape plan. I mean, whatever that is, it will be a plan for, we expect something in the spring and the summer that will be there. Yes, but it's still a plan. It's still a landscape plan.
And you want this plan to come back to the plan commission?
Well, I think, no, we can work with staff.
Okay.
Work with staff on the landscape plan for there. And I understand the seasonal. We're not going to have something, for the last 10 days when it was below zero, landscaping out there. But during the summer, like we have plantings, right. We have the hours of operations, I talked about the employees. So the last piece, and I was conferring with Brooke, the overhead doors that you discussed.
I don't think staff was aware of that intent, that they'd be open. And so that is something that will need to be reviewed by the health officer. It may be able to be accommodated, but I'm not sure of all the codes and what you may have to do in order to open the doors.
Okay,
for food service.
okay. So that's something that will be addressed with the building permit.
Yeah.
And the construction drawings are issued.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So this,
There may be some additional comments coming from the health officer that were not reviewed at this time because we were unaware of it.
yeah, in essence, they might not be allowed. I don't know.
Don't know.
Right, and it's not our,
Brooke, didn't Spears have that
Yeah,
originally?
it says on it too.
What, D'Agostino's has those kind of windows.
No, Spears, I
they
thought
don't
had
have
a whole
overhead.
door.
They have windows that open.
There's nowhere in town that has overhead doors.
Right.
Oh,
It was,
yeah.
it was part of Spears' plan at one time.
It was.
And they
And they
did not
got-
have
and they
it
did not have
ultimately.
that.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Yep.
So I've just been informed that we need these overhead doors approved. We have 4 tenants that want these overhead doors based on what we've promised them for the ability to have outdoor seating and open up their restaurant, and it kind of goes along with the whole concept of the town center plan. So I'm going to respectfully ask that you approve the overhead doors.
So how,
So the plan commission reviews the appearance, and if everyone's in agreement, you can allow for that. Just that, so you understand, there may be some additional construction code or other municipal code requirements that we have not put forth at this time because we were unaware of it. So we may have to come back and comply with some other measures.
Well, it's hard for me to agree to that until I know what those other measures are.
Then,
Well, I mean,
this is new information
Yeah.
to us right now.
all,
so-
I mean, all I'd say is that, as Brooke said, the plan commission is approving the appearance of them. Obviously, just like when they get submitted for permits and codes, you just have to make sure that that the doors as operational or as constructed would comply with all the village remaining codes. And all we're saying is we don't know what those codes are, what, if any comments there might be relating to them. So I don't think it really impacts necessarily the plan commission's vote. It would just be something in the future to be aware of.
Yeah, because fire codes could be involved if you got the doors open, the sprinkler heads aren't.
There's
I had
several
to-
codes that could be impacted.
Yeah.
And so
But,
I'm just
yeah,
saying
yeah,
that we
that's
don't
that
have that
permit, yeah.
information with us tonight.
I guess it's the best we could do for now.
yes. As we said, we're approving the appearance, which
Okay.
includes the overhead doors. We're voting on it. I'm not sure we're going to approve it. We're voting on it.
I think we're on the same page here.
Yes,
So
we are. Are you going to add something to?
Right. I will. Think about it.
As Ms. Jones is thinking about what we're going to have there, are there any other questions?
All of these have to come back to us for signage at some point too, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Lighting? Is there exterior lighting?
There is.
I can't. No, I think they go on.
I was going to ask that
And
one
then
too.
depending on the season,
Go ahead.
they need to.
Oh, yes.
I can ask. Exterior lighting
Exterior lighting,
on this building?
we do have exterior lighting in this building.
So we didn't do a night rendering, but you see these little rectangles right here? Those are wall sconces.
Do we have in the packet, do we have,
Photometric.
On the finished palette page, they have
There is-
examples.
great, that's good.
Yeah.
And then bike racks? No bike racks around here?
That's just part of our site plan.
Right, that's what I
Our
figured.
overall site plan has bike racks,
Right,
but that
That's what I
doesn't
thought. I
affect
do recall
this-
that.
Yeah, that doesn't
Doesn't-
affect this building.
just wanted to clarify that. Does anybody have any other questions? As I'm stalling. It's all right, take your time, Brooke.
You are calling them overhead garage doors?
That's probably a misnomer. They're not actually garage doors. That's what we were talking about earlier. As you can see, let me try to get the mouse here. They actually have a short wall right here.
Okay.
So there is a separation of the seating from inside to outside, but it does give, by taking, it's like a movable window wall, for lack of a better.
So they're not doors because there's a
Sorry?
wall. They're not doors?
No.
They're windows.
Is it on a rail like a garage door is and it goes up?
It kind of is. For the record, if you can see my sliding hands, they kind of go up, and then the second one goes up, and then the third one goes up.
Oh, okay.
And they kind of stack on the inside, so
yeah,
they
yeah.
don't do this.
Okay.
Which is a fire issue.
Right.
And there's always a solution, of course, but that's the
So they're windows.
They're windows.
they're
Yeah.
kind of windows. Yeah,
Okay.
a shorthand of overhead door is what we use, but it's
Well,
really not a
that
door.
could make a very big
Stacking windows.
difference
There
then,
you go.
as they bring this to the other departments within the village.
And we anticipate having that conversation with the fire chief and the building department and so on.
Vertically stacking windows?
There are several systems
Collapsible,
that do
maybe?
this. There are windows that go up, and then there are windows that go side to side.
Yep.
Just as an aside, you might want to have some of this clarified before you go to the village board.
Okay.
Just
Okay, so as proposed, the windows adjacent to the patio are operable and are intended to be open as weather permits.
Like any other window.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Did you have anything else?
There's one other condition, that the patio should have seasonal landscaping.
Okay, great.
Motion with those conditions.
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Powers, second by Commissioner Johnson. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Powers votes yes. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Bonova?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Doorman?
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis?
Yes.
Chairman Rafato?
Yes. Motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Just have something for you to sign. Oh, boy.
Does this location have fried pickles? Is the question.
Fried pickles?
Yeah, very important for my wife.
Deep.
Well, the internet is a wonderful tool, and we could go
Other
on there
locations have
and
had it, so I
find out if they have fried pickles on their menu.
Other locations have, so
Oh,
I
okay.
expect
Then
them.
we should be good.
Yes, please.
I'll make sure that I put that in the lead.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you
No, I
doing
just
the,
forgot
I heard CityWorks is going into
Schaumburg.
Schaumburg.
That's correct.
We are not involved, but we are working with the same architect. We represent Callison RTKL, who's the architect for the landlord. So we designed the core and shell of the building, if you will, the outside. And the tenant's architect, so the CityWorks Bottleneck Ownership Group, they hired another firm called Dacre and Youngquist, and they do the interiors. But they also provide us with the look of the building, the exterior building. So they're the ones who gave us the tile and the siding and the wood and the stone, saying these are the elements that we need to use in our building. But not every CityWork building looks like the next one. So the one in Schaumburg, for example, I think has a curved roof and some other elements, but some other elements are shared. So you'll see the copper tile and the stone base and the wood look.
And the CMU?
I don't know, actually. I don't have that. Well,
Yeah, well,
yes, so there is a CityWorks at Pinecrest, and they are using a lot of the same elements. It's a mixed-use building, so it's a lot bigger. It has a cinema on top of it. A little different than the standalone.
So Mallory, next time you go back home,
Okay.
check it out for us. Thank you.
Orange Village, that's
Okay.
where it is.
Calling docket number PC-19, tabled without discussion on 12/7/2017, Wheeling Town Center, various lots within the Wheeling Town Center subdivision. Address to be determined, site plan and appearance approval of building and site modifications. Brooke?
I have
anything?
nothing.
So what we're really talking about here are, as we talked about with Starbucks, the footprint changed. And as we talked about with CityWorks, the footprint changed. And so based on our meetings with staff, they wanted to handle this as a separate docket number to point out those changes. And so we've pretty much been through a lot of these. The one item that we didn't talk about is the change to building H2, but the change to building H2 is a direct result of the shift that was made for CityWorks. So we kind of did talk about it. We're just, I guess, making it official now. And then we have on here right now, we've combined buildings F and G. We used to have a cut through here. We're not asking for appearance approval or anything on building FG, but we are in negotiations with 2 tenants right now. One of them is a breakfast, lunch, diner concept that wants 5,000 square feet up here at the north end. And then the other one is a meat and potatoes, sandwich, salad, fast casual eatery concept that wants 3,500 square feet to the south here. And based on those 2 requirements, what they're asking for, it doesn't really make sense to separate the buildings anymore. We've also had a lot of discussions with our architect and our contractor to realize that when we combine the buildings, it actually becomes much more efficient from an energy standpoint, heating, cooling, building materials. We've gone over this with the 2 tenants that have expressed interest, that we are working to finalize leases with, working to finalize plans and building elevations, and we will come back to you when we have final building elevations for approval. We just wanted to let you know that this is the site plan that we are using. This is the site plan that we are working with right now and that we are using for marketing purposes. And it's all, again, based on retail, tenant interest, floor plans, and making sure that we, accommodate them. So I believe that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. We also made changes to Outlot Building B. And again, this was a direct result of the change that was made to the Starbucks. And so Outlot Building B has changed. And again, based on our negotiations with tenants, I think there's a zoom in of Building B here. Yeah, there it is. So this is what Building B used to look like, is the red square. Right now, we have a 2,000 square foot bank that wants a drive-through, and we feel like the remaining 2,500 square feet will be very attractive to a lot of other retailers that we've been negotiating with. And so this is what we have now for Outlot Building B. So those are the items that have changed on the site plan.
One of the items, and you alluded to it in the previous docket item about the shared parking plan.
Yes.
Yeah, can you just talk about that a little bit more?
My man Steve.
Is that why he stuck around? Poor Steve.
Yes, we provided an updated parking plan. It's the same report, just updating the numbers. And as Brad indicated, we've actually have less parking in the evening than we originally projected. And so we can theoretically handle more restaurant space. One of the reasons is, as he mentioned, the breakfast lunch concept. All the restaurants in all our original studies assume breakfast, lunch, dinner, or lunch and dinner. And so that's why we're having our peak demands are in the evening, early evening, between the theater and the restaurants. So that frees up 5,000 square feet of parking out we don't need in the evening. So that helped relieve that. Plus, we also adjusted for the city works because, again, we owe, for all our restaurants, we conservatively estimated the number of seats. You know, per your code is your parking space on seats, and the city works is less. For the 2 new restaurants in F, we still only have square footages, so we conservatively are still using those higher numbers until we get floor plans, and most likely when we come back, we'll have those actual numbers. But we've adjusted this, for all these changes, we've adjusted the parking, and we're still good in terms of providing plenty of parking with some buffer for the retail, restaurant, theater activities.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Friedman?
That would be it for the site
Okay,
plan changes.
great.
But if you guys have any questions.
That's where we're going next. Commissioner Powers.
Thanks. I want to ask about the combining of F and G. I understand why you have to do it. Is there, do you know what the total length on the west side of building, the combined building F is? I'm just kind of curious. And can you also talk about the north side of building F where it seems kind of narrow by Burger King? I know staff put something in there, and I wasn't sure in the walkway on the north side of building F where it was delineated from Burger King, was there going to be some kind of wooden fence provided by Burger King, or it would be narrow? I mean, how much space, is there a fence there on the north side of
So
building
just to answer your question, we haven't changed the width of the walkway between the north side of building F and the property line. So the sidewalk width has maintained, it hasn't changed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And you guys aren't worried at all about people having to walk around to get to the front?
The tenants, both tenants have approved dual entrances.
Front and back?
Yeah, so an entrance on the
West and east
side and the east side.
That was my question. That was where I was going. That's
right.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. My concern was to combine, we lost the middle, and then you just clarified both sides, so it's great.
No problem.
Commissioner Kalis.
Thank you. No, I had a question about the separation between Burger King, but I think when we were talking about Burger King, there was a fence there. Was that correct?
Yes, there's
Yeah,
an
that's what I
approved
thought.
fence there.
So, and as far as if the tenants are fine, then I'm fine. So I have no questions about the changes.
Commissioner Creech.
Thank you. My only concerns are, again, trash containers. So I hope that the combination of these buildings and all the buildings and build-outs in the future have integral trash facilities.
So right now, we do have a trash enclosure on the west side of building FG. And we made a slight modification to a hatched area that would be no parking, so it would be easy to roll the dumpster out and get picked up.
Okay.
So, right, I mean, it's again, preliminary, but it is on our plan that it's like right here. And then right next to this island, I think, is hatched, and then they could just roll the dumpster out and pick it up.
So you spoke of that you're talking with 2 restaurants, but you still have space in the middle?
Correct.
Available?
Yes, correct.
So you're talking about just one facility for all?
Right now, we have
3?
one facility for those 3 tenants, We know that it's going to be enough to service the 2 tenants. We don't know who the 3rd tenant is going to be. And we will make accommodations to the final building plans once we get that information. And again, we will be back for review, and we can go over that in detail at that time.
Okay, we just don't want to lose any more parking spots.
Well, now we have an abundance of parking. It's no longer a problem.
Yeah, until we see how many seats are in there.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. Right. Anything else?
So with all this consolidation, have you increased the retail space from the original PUD?
It's possible that we've increased it, but also I want to let you know that the actual footprint of the cinema, I believe, was originally 40, but now it's like 38,000. And so like, there's give and take areas everywhere. So, I mean, listen, according to the RDA, we need to provide 100,000 square feet of retail. And so we're right there. So.
Yeah, it seemed like you were a little under, and now you seem like you're a little over, so just by the numbers I see on your drawings here. Well, good luck with the rest of these tenants.
Thanks.
We're looking forward to this.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Commissioner Dorband.
I have nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Blanova.
I have nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Nothing for me on this.
And I am good also. I mean, we've talked through all of these things through the other ones and your explanations, and, you know, we want to get tenants in here, and sounds like we've got more in building FG or whatever, so sounds great to me, so.
Thank you.
So based upon that, do I hear a motion for docket number PC 17-19?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Dorband, second by Commissioner Blanova.
And just for the record, it is,
Yes.
there is a condition as stated in the staff report
Yeah,
that the
I'm sorry.
consolidation of building F and G is subject to appearance approval, special use approval if needed, and all applicable construction codes.
Understand.
Thank you. I apologize. So motion by Commissioner Dorband, second by Commissioner Blanova. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Dorband?
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova?
Yes.
Commissioner Creech?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Kalis?
Yes.
Commissioner Powers votes yes, and Chairman Rafato?
Yes. You can come up and sign it when we do the next one too, so
Okay, no problem.
just tell me when you're ready. Calling docket number SCBA 18-2. Whitting Town Center, 351 West Dundee Road, appearance approval of freestanding signs. Mr. Friedman?
So when we went through final PUD, we got approval for the height and the location of the pylon signs. We now have a design, and we would like to finalize it, and we're going to proceed with construction building permits for the 2 pylon signs. This is the design and style that we have chosen. We're very happy with it. The tenants are very happy with it, and we are seeking your approval, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you. Actually, I think it looks pretty nice. Are the tenant panels all going to be the same all the time? I mean, same color?
Yeah, black and white. So it's actually a lot cleaner look.
Oh, I
as
agree.
opposed to having kind of different colors,
Yep.
symbols and stuff.
I know
so.
some tenants in the past in some other locations have said, no, we want our green,
Yeah,
yellow.
surprisingly enough, I haven't had any complaints yet. So.
Okay, good. No, I think that's it. Thanks.
Thanks.
Can you bring up this one? Commissioner Blanova?
I don't have any questions, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Commissioner Powers?
Brad, can you Yeah, this is up here. Can you just indicate, I assume we're talking two of these signs, where in the site plan are these going?
Sure.
So I know.
Yeah. God, it's really hard to see, but I'm sorry if I'm not pointing to the exact
it's okay.
location.
Yeah,
One of them is up in this corner here.
Okay.
And then there's another one. I think it's
You're right
somewhere
there.
over here.
It just,
No,
right here.
they're right there.
Okay, thanks, sorry, thanks.
Okay. And any significance to the number 210 below the sign? Is that a general address or what is that?
I'm sorry, the 210 is not accurate.
Okay.
I apologize for that. It should have been removed.
I have nothing else. That's fine. It's beautiful.
That's where the address is going to be. That's 351?
No,
it's an
because
odd
there's going to be
number.
multiple addresses.
No, so there's no number on the sign. That's true, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that
That's kinda why
shouldn't
I
have been
asked,
there.
too.
Okay, so,
Yeah, because if you'd have to put a range like we've had on some.
yeah, and I don't
others.
like ranges, yeah.
It shouldn't be there. You could put it in the notes that it should be removed.
So each unit will have its own unique address, correct?
Yeah, so we've been through an address proposal with village staff and the United States Postal Service, and
That's fine.
they made some comments to the proposal, but in general, yes, every building, every tenant is going to have its own address.
That's fine. You'll work it out. Thank you.
No problem.
Commissioner Dorband?
I have nothing. I really like the way it looks, though.
Thank you.
Looks good.
Commissioner Kalis?
Thank you. I can't believe that all the companies are going to agree to black and white, just the branding power of things like that, but I love it.
Keep your fingers crossed.
I think it's elegant. I think it looks really nice.
Thank you.
No questions from me.
And Commissioner Creech?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we all agree that it's just going to be black and white no matter what?
Yes, that is our intent, yes.
I think it's a great looking sign. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck.
So, to that point, I mean, we have it black, that's the intention. I've got to believe that if you're going to make any changes to it, like colors and things like that, that it would have to come back before us.
Right.
So,
Yeah, okay.
and I agree, it's really a nice sign. I guess the W in the Wheeling.
Yeah, that's actually our new logo for the Wheeling Town Center.
Cool.
Interesting. I was just thinking.
We
about
paid top dollar for a marketing company to come up with that.
That's a West Virginia cost. Yeah, I think that's.
It looks beautiful.
Okay, no, all right, top dollar.
Top dollar, yeah.
So do I have a motion to approve docket number SCB 18-2?
I'm sorry.
With the
Excuse me.
conditions.
I
I'm
have two
sorry.
conditions.
I'm getting a little.
Number one, tenant panels are limited to the black and white color scheme. And two, no building address shall be shown on the sign.
Right.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Creech, second by Commissioner Blanova. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Creech,
Yes.
Commissioner Blanova,
Yes.
Commissioner Dorband,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis,
Yes.
Commissioner Powers votes yes, and Chairman Mafato.
Yes. We just have a couple of things for you to sign.
All right.
Welcome to the village.
You have a wonderful facility here.
Can we get a tour at all, Brad? I mean, just on this.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, if you want to walk the site with me anytime, we'll get you a hard hat and a vest and give you a tour.
Just
So,
schedule something with staff, maybe, yeah. Okay.
You can, I assume you have my contact info, but if not, I'm happy to give you my card. And if
I'll work through staff.
you want to meet, I'm at the site all the time. If you want to meet me there and walk through with our GCs, I'd be happy to give anybody a tour.
It'd be kind of cool.
come to my office and see it every day.
Just have these things to sign, Brad.
Okay.
And thank you.
Only if they do work, though.
And thank you to your team.
Only if they do work. Only if they do work.
Oh, yeah,
When they
right,
come.
yeah, not gonna happen.
Did you guys need these photos back? I don't have any frames for them at home, so.
Okay, yep, great. Those two are yours. Great, yep. Thank you, Brent. When did they go before the
February 5th.
February 5th, you're probably going to be before the board? Sounds like it, right?
That's the next day.
That's the
Next.
next available meeting. Yeah, it'll be either the 5th or the 20th.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, we have one on Monday, but that'd be too short, and then it just happens to be that there's a lot of first and third.
meeting on the 29th?
Nope. No, we only meet on the 1st and 3rd, and then every now and then there's a workshop, but
Do we have those samples of the
Those are mine.
CMU?
They got them all
Wait,
back.
oh, you took two samples?
Can I
The
keep
small-
those two
Small
small
samples?
samples you had provided to me a couple weeks ago? I'd like to keep those for the board meeting.
Oh, that's fine. Yes,
Yeah, could I keep those until the board meeting?
he needs them for the building in Ohio.
Give them like a 4x8 sheet.
Okay. Number 8, approval of minutes, December 21st, 2017.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Powers, second by Commissioner Johnson. Mr. Secretary? Or is that, can we do a voice
Yes,
vote?
voice.
Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. Other business? Brooke?
I have nothing.
I just have a reminder that by tomorrow, you're supposed to RSVP to Lisa of village staff on the employee recognition party, which is January 27th. Make sure you RSVP by tomorrow. Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson, anything?
No, sir.
Commissioner Blanova?
No, nothing, sir, thank you.
Commissioner Powers?
Nothing.
Commissioner Dorban?
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioner Kalis?
The Happy New Year party at the Wheeling Park District was lovely, despite the failed balloon drop, but, you know, that was good. It was hilarious anyways, so that was nice. So thank you for Wheeling for doing that for my kid. She loved it, so that's all.
Commissioner Creech?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will not be here on the 25th. I will be out of town.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Likewise, I should have,
The 25th also?
the next one.
Next one, great,
Yes.
thank you. That was Commissioner Creech and
Yes.
Commissioner Kalis. Will not
I'll
be
be in
here.
Florida with.
Great. Mallory, anything?
nothing.
Thank you. And I have nothing except Happy New Year to everyone. It's going to be an exciting year, as evidenced by first few items this year. They're excellent. Motion to close.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
9:05, 9:07.